My wife, Elise, passed away earlier this year. The pain feels as fresh as yesterday, not because I remember that day so clearly, but because I haven't truly lived since it happened. It's remarkable how quickly life can change. That morning had been ordinary. Elise was feeding our infant daughter, Luna, while I prepared breakfast, humming along to old jazz records. Everything seemed perfect until Elise looked at her hands with a puzzled expression and mentioned how they felt like ice. That simple observation marked the end of my perfect world. A day later, I sat holding one of those cold, lifeless hands as a doctor explained how quickly the infection had spread through her system. I learned several harsh truths that day. I struggle with sympathy from others, I find social gatherings unbearable, and I'm financially unprepared for single parenthood. I hadn't realized how much I relied on Elise for emotional stability. Every social interaction became overwhelming, and my modest income as a research assistant couldn't cover the payments on our suburban home. When Elise's mother offered us her seldom-used vacation cottage in coastal Normandy, I accepted without hesitation, eager to escape the pitying glances of friends and neighbors. It wasn't until Luna and I arrived at the house that I felt the first twinge of unease. I knew the cottage was old, perhaps 2 or 3 centuries according to Elise's mother, but it looked almost medieval. The roof sagged slightly in the middle, and twin chimneys at either end seemed to cling desperately to the main structure. These chimneys connected to the only heat sources, 2 massive stone fireplaces bearing ancient chisel marks from their creation. Massive oak beams supported the upper floor. Though still strong, they were riddled with tiny woodworm holes. Even after thorough cleaning, walking on the creaky upstairs floorboards would send fine dust drifting down to the rooms below. Despite its quirks, I found a strange contentment there. The small village was incredibly quiet, leaving Luna and me in peaceful isolation. The abundance of shuttered windows might have suggested a ghost town, but the illusion broke with the hourly chiming of the village church bells, which seemed to serve as a signal for locals to emerge for their daily routines at the bakery or tobacco shop. During my brief outings, I noticed the aging population. I couldn't recall seeing anyone younger than 30. Not that I interacted much with them. I couldn't speak French, let alone the regional dialect, and they always regarded me with suspicion. By strange coincidence, my only English-speaking neighbor was the elderly woman next door. A woman named Margot, who looked nearly as ancient as the building itself, lived in the adjacent house. Our first meeting was peculiar. I had just returned from the corner store with Luna strapped to my chest and groceries in hand. As I fumbled with my keys, I heard the distinctive sound of wooden shoes on stone. I turned to face an elderly woman in traditional wooden clogs and a black and white dress with a matching frilled cap. Before I could greet her, she pointed a gnarled finger at Luna and asked in a thick accent, "Is the child yours?" "Yes, she is. Her name is Luna," I replied cautiously. I didn't just find her somewhere. I immediately regretted my attempt at humor as Margot's face creased into a severe frown. "This is no place for a child," she said coldly. "This house," I gestured to the building. "It looks worn from the outside, but it's actually quite comfortable inside and—" Margot cut me off with a wave of her finger. No, this place is too dangerous for the child. We are too close to the whispers." For a moment I was confused by her meaning, but then realized she was referring to the valley that bordered the western edge of the village. The locals used the word whispers to describe an area of ancient geological formations. The valley next to the village, like many others in the region, was filled with massive boulders and strange rock formations. These enormous stones, some larger than houses, were said to have been tumbled into place by prehistoric cataclysms. The ancient nature of these valleys had spawned countless legends of spirits and creatures who had inhabited these lands before humans arrived, though such mysticism had never appealed to me. "I wouldn't worry," I said, stroking Luna's head as she began to stir. "Luna won't be wandering near those rocks anytime soon." Margot simply shook her head. "Her mother should be watchful. It's not what wanders in that should concern you, but what wanders out." Before I could ask what she meant, Luna began to cry. "Her mother is no longer with us?" I said quickly, feeling a sudden wave of grief. "I should get inside and feed her." "Nice meeting you." We exchanged names and I hurried inside. As I unpacked my groceries and prepared Luna's formula, I felt my sorrow creeping back. I had been in Normandy for 3 months and realized I hadn't thought about Elise at all in the past week. Between work and caring for Luna, I'd had little time for reflection. Now, alone with my thoughts, I remembered how deeply I missed her. The small things that were now absent hurt the most. The way I would catch her in my arms when she returned from work, the scent of her on my pillows, and how she would sing Luna to sleep. These little moments that together formed my love for her were now just memories. Luna's cries pulled me from my melancholy trance. "It's okay. Daddy's here," I said softly, lifting the bottle to her mouth. "What am I going to do, Luna?" I whispered as her mother's hazel eyes gazed into mine. I sighed and held her closer. "At least I'll always have you." As if sensing my distress, Luna giggled and flashed a toothless smile. I smiled back. "Okay, little one, time for bed. Daddy has more work to do." I carried Luna upstairs to her crib in the corner of my bedroom by the window. "Sleep well, my little star." I kissed her forehead and tucked her in. Downstairs in the sitting room, I lit a fire, opened my laptop, and resumed my work. I don't know how much time had passed when I heard the first thump. I'd been wearing headphones, so I wasn't sure if I'd imagined it. Then another sound and another. I jumped to my feet as Luna began to wail, accompanied by what sounded like frantic footsteps from upstairs. "Luna!" I shouted, racing up the staircase and into the bedroom. I expected to find something, anything, but as I burst into the room, Luna was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Had I imagined it? I stood confused as a sudden draft blew through the room. The window next to Luna's bed was slightly open. I was certain it had been closed before. A low rumble of thunder came from outside, and rain began to patter quietly on the tiled roof. A strange uneasiness filled me. I'd never believed in the supernatural, but this felt unsettling in a way I couldn't explain. Whether it was a ghost or just a draft, I suddenly felt uncomfortable leaving Luna alone in that room. I carefully lifted her from her crib and carried her downstairs. She stirred as we entered the sitting room, and upon seeing her bottle on the side table, she began reaching for it insistently. "Still hungry?" I asked as I laid her in the small bassinet by the sofa. "Okay, just one more." I hurried to the kitchen to prepare another bottle. When I returned, her eyes were locked on the bottle with unusual intensity. "Wow, you really want this, don't you?" I reached down to feed her, but she practically snatched it away with dexterity I'd never seen before and began drinking rapidly. "Whoa, slow down, sweetie. You'll upset your tummy." I tried to pull the bottle away, but her grip was surprisingly strong. In disbelief, I watched as she drained the entire contents in seconds, then let out a small burp and tossed the bottle from her bassinet. "Luna, where did that come from?" I asked, shocked. I had never seen Luna or any baby behave this way. Luna's hazel eyes locked with mine as another rumble of thunder vibrated through the room. A wave of uneasiness washed over me. Something seemed wrong, Luna seemed wrong. I wasn't sure if it was the strangeness of the evening affecting me, but the intensity of her gaze was almost unnerving. As if trying to capitalize on my attention, Luna began murmuring, her first word? Luna had never attempted speech before. My discomfort began to fade as I realized I was about to witness a special moment. "What is it, Luna? Daddy's listening?" I whispered, afraid any noise would break this moment of discovery. M. Luna mumbled, the words almost forming. "Yes, Luna?" I said in anticipation. "More," Luna said deliberately. A surprised laugh escaped me. "More? Luna, sweetheart, you just had a whole bottle." Luna's brows furrowed as if in understanding. "More," she repeated more firmly. "No, Luna, it's past your bedtime. You don't need another bottle," I said, concern returning to my voice. "More, now!" Luna screamed as lightning illuminated the room. She began thrashing wildly in her bassinet. For a moment, I sat there in disbelief. Luna was only 9 months old. It wasn't impossible for her to begin speaking at this age. but her apparent understanding of my words felt as unnatural as her sudden appetite. Luna had never had a tantrum like this before. She had cried and gotten upset, of course, but never screamed with such fury. I gave in after trying to calm her by talking softly, gently rocking her, and even singing, but still she screamed, demanding to be fed. I felt defeated as I prepared another bottle. Elise would have known what to do, I thought, but a knocking at the door interrupted my self-pity. It was Margot, dressed in a flannel nightgown and slippers that were getting soaked in the intensifying rain. With a stern expression, she pointed inside. "Your child has kept me awake this past hour." "I'm so sorry, Margot," I stammered. "It's Luna. I don't know what's gotten into her. She won't stop eating and cry." Margot pushed past me before I could finish. "Where is she?" she demanded. "Let me see her." She didn't need directions. She simply followed the wailing. I quickly followed with the bottle in hand. "She's never been this hungry before," I said, handing the bottle to Luna, which immediately silenced her screams. "This just started tonight?" Margot asked, concern growing on her face. "Yes, and she even spoke her first words, only to ask for more food," I said as Luna finished the last of the bottle. Margot shook her head. "I'm sorry to tell you this," she began, then paused. She watched Luna discard the third empty bottle, then looked up at me. "This is not your child," she said matter-of-factly. "What are you talking about?" I asked in astonishment. "Children are rare here. They are coveted, desired by things that aren't human." Margot leaned down and picked up Luna, who had begun crying again. "This is the Hollow One's work. I've known many parents who notice too late or refuse to accept the truth. Months pass, food disappears, yet the baby never grows." She looked down at Luna, who was wailing again. "Your real daughter is deep within the whispers now. I tried to warn you," she sighed. Anger welled up inside me. "That's my child you're holding. I don't know about any Hollow One, and I don't like how you're talking about her. Give her back to me." I extended my arms expectantly. "You don't believe me?" Margot laughed grimly. "Look, I'll show you." She suddenly pressed her thumb hard against Luna's temple. Luna's screams intensified. I shouted and lunged toward her, but before I could reach her, I heard a distinct crack as something popped from Luna's eye socket. What fell to the floor wasn't flesh. It bounced and rolled to my feet like a marble. In a moment where time seemed frozen, I picked it up. It was a perfect glass eye, crafted with detail beyond any prosthetic I had ever seen. I looked up to see Luna with one empty socket, the skin inside folded like a poorly made doll. My stomach churned. "What is that thing?" I asked aloud. "A changeling, a convincing fake and a cruel imitation of life," Margot explained calmly as Luna struggled against her. "They are creations of the Hollow Ones, imperfect beings who have only survived by claiming the beautiful and whole." My mind raced, the madness of the situation and the screams of Luna, or rather the changeling, making my head pound. "Where is the real Luna?" I asked desperately. "They've taken her to the caves beneath the whispers," Margot said as another lightning strike illuminated her dark eyes. "If you leave now, you might recover her before she's claimed completely. You'll need to bring this," she said, holding up the writhing changeling. Though I knew now it wasn't human, my parental instinct made me take the one-eyed infant and cradle it under my arm. "What am I supposed to do with it?" I asked, disturbed by how she had handled the child. "Use it to bargain. They'll only reveal themselves that way. Your child is valuable to them, but not more than the tool they used to acquire her. These things require great effort to create." She gestured toward the door. "Go now to the deepest part of the whispers. If she's still alive, you'll hear her cries to guide you. I hope you have better fortune than I did." With too much information and too little time, all I could say was thank you as I grabbed my coat and ran into the storm. The rain fell heavily, and the changeling cried incessantly. Even knowing what it was, I instinctively tried to shield it from the rain. Lights flickered on in houses as I ran past with the screaming child. As the streetlights faded and the rock formations loomed before me, The only illumination came from sporadic lightning flashes that briefly revealed the stone giants I desperately climbed over. I had been navigating the labyrinth of rocks for less than 5 minutes when I heard the first cries. Faint and carried on the wind. My baby girl. I quickened my pace, recklessly leaping from boulder to boulder with the imposter clutched to my chest. Then I found it. A circular clearing with 3 massive boulders at its center, arranged to form a stone doorway leading into endless darkness. A single cry echoed from the void. "Luna!" I shouted, but only thunder answered. I wished I had brought a flashlight or anything that would have let me see into that dark cavern. I couldn't tell how deep or far it extended, and I didn't want to risk falling unless absolutely necessary. I had to try Margot's approach. "I have your creation," I called into the abyss. "And I know you have my daughter." No response. "I want to trade. I'll return what's yours if you return what's mine," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. Again, I heard Luna's cries echo from the darkness. I placed the changeling on the stone. Its glass eye gleamed in the moonlight. I realized I had no choice. I grabbed a loose rock and raised it above my head. "I'll destroy it. I'll smash your creation if you don't bring me my daughter," I screamed with a primal desperation. The thought sickened me, but I suddenly knew I would do it. If I couldn't have Luna, they couldn't have this thing. A guttural screech erupted from the darkness. An inhuman, metallic wail that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I'll do it," I yelled. The screams of Luna from the cave seemed to synchronize with the creature below me. "I'm giving you until the count of 3, I said, tightening my grip on the rock. 1. Another unearthly howl emerged from the dark. 2. The changeling looked up with what appeared to be fear. 3. A blinding flash of lightning struck a tree just meters away, momentarily blinding me with brilliant white light. As my vision cleared, the rock still held above me. I looked down into 2 familiar hazel eyes. I immediately threw the rock aside and gathered Luna into my arms. I don't know how long I sat there, quietly sobbing and whispering comforting words into Luna's ears. But as the rain soaked through my clothes, I stood and made my way home. I don't remember the journey home or going to bed. All I recall is waking on my sofa with Luna cradled in my arms. A few dying embers glowed in the fireplace, and morning sunlight crept through the gaps in my window shutters. For a brief, comforting moment, I thought I had experienced a terrible nightmare. This illusion shattered quickly when I glanced at my table, where a single glass eye stared back at me. 2 days later, we left Normandy. I never saw Margot again, though sometimes I wonder about her cryptic words about having better fortune than she did. As for Luna, she grew into a happy, healthy child with her mother's hazel eyes, both of them perfectly human, warm, and alive. Sometimes at night, when the wind howls and rain taps against our windows, I find myself checking Luna's room more often than necessary. Not because I fear she'll be taken again, but because I know what waits in the ancient stones, hungry for what it cannot create.